Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Podium Picks. Sean and Tommy inside the Working Against Gravity studios here as we are going to take a fun little trip down memory lane and talk about an event that I think a lot of people enjoyed and was just starting to gain a little momentum, getting to where we needed it to be, and then we stopped doing it, and that's the Invitational. I had a lot of fun going back through some of those competitions and looking at some of the more memorable moments.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, I felt like this is an event that was really starting to find its legs over time as the global influence of the sport started to take hold a little bit more. It started to have a little bit more implications, and you got to see some really fun matchups and some uncharacteristic combinations of athletes that I thought was a nice addition to the season.
Yeah, it was a blast. But before we get into that, we have to tell everybody about our presenting sponsor for today's episode, and that is Working Against Gravity. And we are in the thick of the battle right now that is the holidays. And that's, carbs are coming at you from all angles.
Yep.
Thanos is there with the Chitauri and just raining destruction upon you. And then, you're sitting there, and if you need somebody on your left,
oh yeah,
Working Against Gravity is who you want on your side to help you not lose all the gains and maybe lose planet Earth.
Exactly. That Infinity Gauntlet is all of your gains, and you're Captain America, and you're getting up after after a weekend full of Thanksgiving, and you strap down that broken shield of yours, and just like Sean says, just when you think you're going to succumb to that pile of leftover turkey and pumpkin pie and whatever's coming down the pipe for Christmas, you hear on your left, and out through that portal, it's not Falcon. It's your nutrition coach that you got from WAG. They're one-on-one, your very own nutrition coach with your very own customized nutrition plan to help you get through the holidays. And then before you know it, more portals start opening up. And instead of Star-Lord and the Ravagers, it's the thousands of hours of research that WAG provides for you.
Job.
Then you hear another one, you hear E-Bombay. And instead,
you're getting fired up now.
It's the members-only Facebook group that they provide for you. And that's the support they have for you and taking care of your nutrition needs and getting you through the holidays. And that's what Working Against Gravity does. And that's what they'll do for you, our listeners, with their special deal. Elite 50 gets you $50 off your first month. And right now, they're also going to be starting we're just sprinkling it out there, a coach's cert and some free online courses for our listeners. So once again, workingagainstgravity.com, use the code ELITE50 and be on the lookout for some links for some signups for some free stuff for our team as well.
Really love having them on board. They do a great service to people. And look, if you're looking to get stuff dialed in for the Open, definitely want to check out Working Against Gravity. Workingagainstgravity.com and use the code ELITE50. Okay, let's get into our spirit of the games and our dark horse picks. I always lose track. I think it's your turn to start.
It's my turn.
I think Tommy Marquez will be kicking off today.
Okay. So my spirit of the games is the 2012 final event.
Okay.
So 2012 was the first CrossFit Invitational, a mixture of Team USA versus the world. And that final event was a mix of relay style and synchronized movements, including pull-ups, overhead squats, double unders, and deadlifts. And I have this moment in my head of the entire team with the overhead squats doing synchronized overhead squats in a circle. Yeah. Watching each other as they lifted, going up and down. And that was one of those just moments that stood out in the first year of an event that I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. Mm-hmm. And it was also one of those things when you look back on that the Invitational, because of the talent level, was a place that Castro and the team would test out concepts for the team competition. So I think you can see a lot of elements of the team competition in that early year, and that final event with the synchronization, something that's paramount to the team competition now, you got to see back there. So to me, that was my spirit of the games moment in that first year.
That's a good one. I like that one a lot. That was I went back and watched some of that event.
Yeah,
and it was, and I will allude to this one at some point. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on that. So that's your spirit of the games. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the dark horse here.
So my dark horse is something that took place at the Invitational, but not necessarily in competition.
Okay, I got one of those. So that's fine.
So my dark horse is a 100-kilo snatch from one Cara Saunders.
Oh, I remembered. Okay, I totally forgot about this.
Yes, at the 2016 Invitational. That was in
Oshawa,
Yeah, in the back. Mm-hmm. It was during the warm-ups for the lifting event.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. That's great.
And Cara, she was then Cara Webb, now Cara Saunders, was, sometimes you just strike while the iron's hot, right?
Yeah.
The bar feels better than it used to. I believe that was the first time that a women's games athlete snatched 100 kilos in competition, in a competition setting.
Right.
So we had some 100-kilo lifts from some non-games level athletes, some former Olympic lifters. I think Oksana Slavenko did it at regionals 1 year. But Cara was the first games women's athlete to kind of break that threshold.
Yeah.
And she did it in the background. And thank goodness someone was recording it to watch it happen, and she smoked it.
Yeah, that was, man, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Those are two really good ones. Okay, so my spirit of the games, and I think one thing that was, and this based on this theme, that one of the cool things about the Invitational is that it took athletes to locales and in front of fans that normally didn't get to see these athletes. And so my spirit of the games is sort of an homage to that. The fans in Madrid in 2015 get my spirit of the games because the year before we had been in San Jose, and we were we were at the SAP Center, which is where the San Jose Sharks play. It's a big arena. And I think we looked at that like, yeah, probably shouldn't have gone there. It was too big. We lost that intimate feeling that we get in some of the venues that we traditionally would go to. And so to go to Madrid in 2015 and to see the response there at the Caja Magica, which is a great venue. It's it's hosted regionals. I think we broke the floor there one year at regionals. But I remember they had on Friday, because I think the Invitational was on Saturday. But the day prior to the competition, they had like a local competition, and the athletes actually went, and then they kind of did a sort of informal meet and greet. I mean, you had like Rich Froning, and I think Camilo Blanc-Bazinet was there, and I mean, you had a lot of big names. Dan Bailey, and they got mobbed. I remember we did some rehearsal on Friday, and the athletes came from that sort of meet and greet to the rehearsal. And I'll never forget the look on Camila Blanc-Bazinet's face. She looked shell-shocked because everybody was swarming her, and Rich and they had to be escorted out. They were, and look, nothing got violent or out of hand, but I mean, the people were so happy to see him. And then I remember the first event, the crowd was so loud that they didn't hear the go buzzer, so they had to restart the event. So the fans in Madrid in 2015 get my spirit of the games. So moving on to my dark horse, I'm kind of taking a page out of your book here, because a lot of dark horse picks and a lot of picks that you make, you like to say, well, this led to this and this led to that. So my dark horse is just going to be the entire 2012 Invitational for a couple reasons. The first is that it was a made-for-TV event. They had the Eurosport had this series called The Box over there, and they wanted some sort of international competition. And so they came up with the Invitational. So the Invitational was not supposed to be sort of this annual thing. It was a made-for-TV event for Eurosport that they happened to show over in the United States. I think we got it on YouTube eventually. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that I am about 90% sure that this is where the idea for the Grid League was hatched.
Oh, yeah.
So this is where Tony Budding, at the time, who was a guy who broke off from CrossFit HQ, was on site for the Invitational. And I remember him telling me that he was in a cab, I think with Justin Berg, and they two of them then started talking about maybe doing like a series of events, and that's where Tony sort of spawned the idea of you could have teams in different cities that traveled and did this stuff. And so in 2012, the seed for the Grid League was planted at the Invitational. So
look at it now.
Look at it, yes. Where do I look at it now? But
Florida.
But I think there was a lot of things too that came from that event and that TV experience that bled into the future of the sport. So 2012 is my dark horse. All right, now before we get to the podium, as we do every week, we're going to get to our Whoop podium. And this week, we're recording this on Friday, December 4th. So we're going to look at top day strain for Thursday, December 3rd.
Yep. So if you go on your Whoop app, the bottom of your screen, you click the little like 3-person thing to go to all your groups. Go to Talking Elite Fitness. We're going to go day strain, but we're actually going to go for the day before, so everybody's had a full day to work out. Top day strain for December 3rd in our Talking Elite Fitness Whoop group. Number 1, Brian Lee, 20.7. Holy cow. Liz Damas, she's always up
always there.
20.7. She's got 4 activities.
Working hard.
Matt O'Brien, 20.5. Alec Schnitzler, 20.4. That's an awesome name. Valentino Wong, 19.7. That is an even better name. Christopher Sutton, 19.3. Gail Page, 19.3. H.C. Redfield, another favorite, 18.8. Dennis Anderson, 18.8. And Danielle Sheeran, 18.6. Those are our top 10 for Day Strain for Thursday, December 3rd. These people got after, basically every single one of them had multiple events, including things like horseback riding, dance, running, functional fitness, as always, coaching, really getting into the coaching thing. And then if you're just like Liz Damas, you're just piling up activities left and right. So congrats.
Way to get after it, everybody, and congratulations to our Podium Picks Whoop Podium today for Day Strain for Thursday, December 3rd. All right, now we're going to get into our podium for invitational moments. And the invitational, for those of you who don't know, ran from 2012 to 2017. It started the first 2 years. It was a 6-person competition between 2 teams. And then from 2014 on, it was 4 teams of 4 people. And that's actually helped motivate the change in the overall team competition. So you're up first, Tommy. You are up with your number 3 invitational moment.
Okay, so my number 3 and number 2 are tied together.
Okay.
And the first one sets up the second one. So I'll start. My third place one is Paul Tremblay's clean and jerk duel at the 2014 Invitational in San Jose.
That was a good one.
So that year they did an Olympic lifting style meet. So where one of your male athletes had to do max clean and jerk, the other had to do max snatch, and Paul Tremblay had to do the clean and jerk for Canada, and he was going head to head with Jason Khalipa. And Paul Tremblay is just one of the coolest dudes.
I remember this. He's just kind of leaning there.
Yeah, he's like Paul's one of my favorite people in the sport. He's an awesome dude, just good, fun guy to be around. He has this easygoingness about him, and he is strong as an ox, and that's why his Instagram handle is Haas Tremblay, because he is truly a Haas. And he's going through and he smashes. I think he got up to 365 around there, and he's going bar to bar with Khalipa, puts up the big number, and I think Khalipa misses it and has to take the L there. And it's funny because I have this picture of Paul.
I remember
like
that.
Leaned up, and they ask him if he wants his next attempt, and he's just like, just kind of like,
yep. I remember that.
Like it was almost like like the mob boss who's sitting and he's got his back to the corner and he's got everybody in front of him, and they order something and like he's just like, we're done now. Like, and just kind of like waves it off. Like that's what Paul did, and we didn't know that well because it was his first year qualifying, and he had just missed the games the year before. But I was like, that guy.
That's cool.
That's
I
love it.
He was having some fun,
and he was definitely having some fun.
Yeah.
And it put Canada in the lead for the time being.
Okay, that's a good number 3. So my number 3 comes from 2017, the last Invitational in Melbourne, where we had a really great crowd, people who in Australia who'd been waiting for this event. Jeremy Austin was lobbying for it every year. Like, we got to get the Invitational to Australia, and we did, and I got to work with him, and that was a great treat. But my moment is the shoey that they did. Because that was my first exposure to the shoey. I didn't know what they were doing. I saw the Australian athletes because it was cool. They got to win in front of their home crowd. The crowd was fired up. They were singing, dancing. Jeremy was fired up. It meant a lot to them, and it was cool to see. And then I think it was Cara Saunders breaks out, like takes off her nano, and I think they had some champagne, and she like pours it in the shoe, and then they start to drink from it. And I'd never seen this before. And Jeremy's like, "Oh, you never heard of a shoey?" I'm like, "No, what is a shoey?" And apparently that is a traditional Australian celebration when you win something. And so I was exposed to the shoey, but in the whole context of everything, to see the crowd react the way they did, the athletes having such a fun time, that was a really cool memory because it's an exhibition. There's not a ton riding on the Invitational, but to see how happy it made them and how happy it made the crowd, and to see it get capped off in a shoey. So that's my number 3. That was a fun memory.
That's an awesome one. I actually, Those are like the Shui with the Caja Magica. It was both excellent moments because I think it was definitely one of those ones where it like invigorates a community for sure. So my number 2, which was set up by this number 3.
I think you and I have the same number 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Froning's 305-pound snatch.
That is my, exactly.
To win the event, and it was basically his like Jordan walk-off. And we got it in like super slow motion. And if you go back, you can watch the video. There's a recap video from it that Torrin did.
Great video. Great. That's, I think, one of the best pieces of media that we put out that not a lot of people know about. He did a fantastic job on that.
Go back and look at the 2014 Invitational recap video. Some of it's narrated by Torrin. I actually hit him up a while back ago to tell him because he narrated an ad that ran on the games. I think he's a good narrator.
He is.
Like
he's got a good voice.
He does a good job.
Very sort of calming, soft delivery that works.
And it's funny because he's this massive Viking-looking guy, and I remember I think they used your call on it basically in post to set up the lift, and then it just cuts and you like lay out for the slow mo. Woo. Man, that was an awesome lift.
So since we both have the same number 2, to add to that, I remember after watching that, and remember, he didn't need to do 305.
Yeah.
He had already won, and he already hit 300. And that was, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time in a competition that I had seen that much weight get snatched. We had the overhead squat prior that year at the games where they overhead squatted bigger weight, but they had to take it off of a rack. But that's the first time that I think in that sort of competitive setting in a CrossFit sanctioned event that I saw that much weight get snatched.
I think so. There may have been like, what's his name from TJ's gym back in the day? That used to,
yeah. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
He may have done something similar, or there may have been an outlier there somewhere. Someone may have hang snatched 315, but it wasn't like by a games athlete. I think it's kind of similar in the same event. It wasn't in the public eye. Gotcha. I think it was a similar situation to like Kara, where like a legitimate games athlete had actually had done that.
So I remember, he hits that second lift, and where our broadcast position was, we were basically on the floor. We weren't up high, so we were on the floor. We could watch it all going on. And right behind me, and to my right, was Rich Froning Sr. and the Froning contingency. So after Rich hit that lift, that was the end of that event, and then we went to break. And I remember I took my headset off and I turned around. And I just looked at Senior. I go, "What do you feed that kid?" And he goes, "Anything he wants." So that was cool. But that was a really neat event because I forgot about the context of the whole Paul Tremblay versus Jason Khalipa thing and the way it set up Rich's lift. But that to me was Rich embracing what this was all about. They were there to put on a show for the fans. He could have very easily said, "Nah, I'm done, I won," but he put 5 more pounds on the bar and did it, and the crowd loved it. And that's why I thought, we were talking about before we came on, I thought the Invitational is still a great concept that we were really starting to get right. And I think that was Rich embracing it and helping us get it right by putting on the show that the fans wanted to see. So that's my number 2 as well.
Oh man, it's so my final one. I don't know if we might have the same one. I don't know.
We might.
So my top podium pick is the final event from the 2013 Invitational.
Okay, so no, we don't
in Berlin.
But that was a really good one too.
So I call this David slays Goliath. So the 2013 Invitational was a slightly different format than what we're used to now. It was the USA versus the world team. And coming into that event, there was a ton of talk about, should we even have it? Mm-hmm. Is this worth it? Because USA is just going to slaughter them, and it's going to be ugly. And it just seemed like the USA team was so much more, quote-unquote, talented. So the USA team that year had the top 3 men, Rich, Jason, and Ben Smith. 1, 2, 3 sweep the podium for the men's side. They had 2 of the 3 podium women, Lindsay Valenzuela, Val Robrol, and then another top 5 woman in Telena Fortunato, who had podiumed the year before. Mm-hmm. And they were going up against this very talented but kind of ragtag world team of Albert Dominic LaRouche, Chad McKay, I believe Frederick Agidius, Carl Webb, Camille LeBlanc-Bazinet, and Sam Briggs. Now remember, at this time in 2013, Briggs had won, but Cara hadn't podiumed. We didn't have a full understanding of how good she was.
Yeah.
CLB had not won yet. She was perennial top 10, but hadn't gone top 5 yet. And, ADL, McKay, Frederick are kind of seeing this like kind of in between. And so everybody's like, this is going to be, and like Matt Chan's coaching them, like they're going to smash them. And it came down to the world team, hung tight, won some events. The final event involved worm thrusters and overhead walking lunges with axle bars. And I just always remember the world team marching to victory, kind of shocking everybody. And I think it was Chad McKay. Yeah, Chad McKay is the last one to walk across. And Camille's like pointing to the line like, go, you got this. And big old Chad McKay just, tall as the day is long, and long arms, lunging across the finish line to give the world team the win. It was this massive upset, and I didn't, it happened in Berlin, so it was at odd hours. But I remember watching it and being like, "Oh my goodness!" Like Rich doesn't lose.
No, he was not. Yeah,
and he was not happy.
No, he wasn't. And I know that. I think, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I think someone on the USA team may not have been 100% for that event.
Yeah. Oh yes, I do remember that. Yeah,
but
maybe wasn't training as much,
right? But I when we talk about cool venues, like that was at the I hope I don't mispronounce this, the Tempelhofer Aerodrome.
Oh yeah, like the
and I think it was one of the sites of the Berlin Airlift. Mm-hmm. It was one of the biggest, like it was like a huge horseshoe, almost like airport looking place, gigantic. But that was like where the coolest venue where I've seen and been part of an event. Just the way they had it set up is awesome to be part of that, like that history. But yeah, that was a really cool one because I do remember it's like, oh, this is going to be a slaughter and there's no way. And I remember the first event was like Team Jackie, right? It was like a Jackie relay where I think everyone did Jackie on their own and then they came across the finish line. It was your total time. Like, that was a pretty cool thing to watch that competition as well. And that was closer than a lot of people thought it would be as well. So that set the tone. So my number one. I'm going to go back to 2015. And I actually thought, so I kind of went back and forth between putting this number one or Rich's snatch at number one. But I thought that, again, taking the page out of your book of this led to other things, this was my number one. But this is the opening event of the Invitational in 2015. It was thrusters and rope climbs. And it was China Cho leading the United States from behind to win the event.
Yeah.
So I went back and watched it just to refresh my memory.
Good.
So it was it was a 4-person relay. So the first 2 people did thrusters and then rope climbs where they could use their legs. Mm-hmm. The second 2 people, and it went man, woman, man, woman. Or no, I'm sorry, men started then the women. So the men finished because I remember Rich finished for USA. The second 2 did thrusters but legless. So when you go back and watch it, there was a really good battle between like Europe and Canada. They were up there, and the United States had fallen off because I think the first 2 athletes it was Margot Alvarez, and then she handed off to Dan Bailey, and they were behind.
Yeah.
And when it got to China Cho, she had a 15 rep deficit to make up, and slowly but surely she just starts. That number starts decreasing. They start getting closer and closer, and then by the time. And the crowd's going nuts. By the time, because Europe was in it as well, it was really close. By the time she hands it off to Rich, the United States has a lead. And I remember you go back and watch it. Rich picks up the barbell, and people go crazy because now they're watching Rich do his thing. But in the bigger picture, so the United States goes on to win that event. They won the Invitational that year, and it was just a great foursome, and it was a really cool event to watch. But that was the first exposure that Rich Froning had gotten to China Cho and her skills and how well she operated in a team. And that ultimately led her to being on the Mayhem team. So you wonder if that Invitational in 2015 hadn't happened, does China Cho wind up on Mayhem's team? And help them become the team juggernaut that they are now.
Sean, you're spinning some good wool now.
Like I said, I tried to take a little bit of a page out of your book and how you try to see the bigger picture with this stuff.
Dang.
But that event was a lot of fun to watch. I believe it was taken from, correct me if I'm wrong, from a regional event that year.
Yes.
Where it was thrusters and rope climbs. And it was a great way to kick it off. The crowd was super into it. And then to watch a comeback, I always love a good comeback.
Yep.
And to watch that comeback happen, that was a lot of fun. And it was just the perfect storm of cool comeback, great setting, awesome crowd. Yeah, and I do hope that, and we didn't ask Eric this, but we should have. I do hope there are plans to bring the Invitational back because I think there was a lot right about that event. Needed some tweaking. I think it was too short. It'd be cool if they found a way to make it over 2 days. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was a lot of fun because it got big name athletes in a competition that they're not used to competing in, like on a team, in front of crowds and fans who didn't usually get to see them.
Yeah.
So I would love to see it come back.
You know what I just realized? I forgot. You know who the coach was for that world team that beat the USA?
Wasn't it Mads?
It was Mads. Yeah,
Mads Jacobson, because he was the coach the year earlier too, in 2012.
Yep.
And if you want to see a great intro, go back to 2012, the very first one, the broadcast. Like the guy, I don't know who it was, but he I think he had a good intro that he messed up. Like you could tell he messed up because it was like today. Yeah, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. And that's what makes today a present. Something like that. That was what he was supposed to say, but he
butchered it.
And you're like, what? But he said it with fervor and with gusto, so it was still pretty cool.
And I'm going to give him some guff, and I say it because because we love him here, but like it's kind of like Chase on the team call with Froning and Mayhem. It's kind of replicating the Froning individual call, but 2015.
Poor Chase got a text from his father after that one too. You know, like, hey, you're just on national TV. Great job, son. Not that. It was, oh, really? He didn't win it that year either? Yeah. So, Chase.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good moment. That's a really good, like, thinking of the bigger picture too, man.
Right. Whew. So if you're listening to this or watching it and you haven't been exposed to the Invitational, you don't know what it is, go back on YouTube. You can watch all of them. It was a cool event. It's fun going back and revisiting those because you see some names. Like I forgot who the women were in 2017. I forgot all about Tanil Burline.
Yeah.
She was on that team. I was like, oh, wow. How did I forget her? Mm-hmm. But there's some fun events. You can definitely see, as Tommy alluded to earlier, you can see sort of the how they influenced things at the games. They tested stuff. I think the Invitational was the first place they ever did like an obstacle course for a handstand.
Yep.
So they used that, and then they applied it at the games the final year. And it was the reason why they decided to make the games 4-member teams as opposed to 6.
Yeah.
Because they just thought it was a cleaner look. So those are our favorite moments. Let us know in the comments what yours are. And hopefully we'll get to watch another Invitational someday because that was a fun event. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. For Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.